Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Deeply Renegade podcast. My name is Molly, also known as the Deeply Renegade, and I'd like to welcome you guys to episode 272. Excuse me, I'm still a little bit froggy. It is, Saturday, April 13th, 2019, and I'm glad you could join me today. Whatever. This is a one-take podcast. We're rolling with it. Hopefully I'll have less to show you this week than last week. So it is a super dreary Saturday afternoon. I ended up getting woken up around like 5 with the initial thunderstorm, and it has been raining and thundering ever since. But I did manage to fall back asleep again, so we're good. Plenty of sleep, plenty of coffee. I know, this sounds like a Dynamite sort of combination, but it's fine. It's been a super chill day today. I've mostly just been cleaning the house, so being sick, and having all of the shenanigans afoot. This was like the first weekend where I could just like sit down and be like, alright, master bathroom deep clean go. And like just trying to put stuff where it belongs and all of that fun stuff. So there's actually been surprisingly little knitting today, but I figured now is a good time to record while it was still not too late to drink coffee. Priorities. And so I've packed up a bag of fun to show you guys. And I'll have to sort of sort through it a little bit because I didn't quite stage it right. Oh, and I totally forgot to mention a Stasquisition last week. I ended up buying these cool skein earrings from Erin Lane. So I've looked at them for several years now and decided that this year, on the Sunday, they still had a color I really like, so I decided to go for it because oftentimes I end up buying like at least one knitting themed piece of jewelry, so I'm pretty happy about that, but I had like totally forgotten to dig it out of my bag, as you do. So we'll start with this. Last week I showed you a sweater with a nearly complete band. And this week, I'm back to the stripes. So, I ended up ripping out some of it, not all of it. So, I kept these here, but I ended up ripping out the other ones, because I was okay with the feel of this. Like, it's pretty tight, but it's not, it's not insane. But what I find to be super duper fascinating about it all is how much lighter the yarn turned out. So we had talked a little bit in the shifting light class about how how you spin a yarn changes what color it turns out to be. So having this worsted spun yarn and then plying it really hard resulted in all of the color of the fiber being very, very close to itself. And so what I've actually found is that by letting the twist out of this yarn, I've made it a lighter color than what it was before. It may be a little bit harder to show on camera though. So I'm matching the top part of the sweater a lot better now that I have made this a more compelling yarn. So there's definitely like a couple of little bits of funniness in this yarn because I might have spun the singles a little bit firm, but we are dead balanced now. So I am pretty excited about this. It's much softer now. All of it looks really good. I've for some reason I was just plying it really tight, especially in the 3-ply portion. Once I got to the chain ply portion, that was fine. For some reason that was balanced and the other parts weren't. And unfortunately the chain ply was on the outside of the ball, so I thought when it started off a little kinky, it was just that beginning section. But yeah, no, it was most of the yarn was that way. So this is 151 wraps, or what do we know? It is, I believe it's 301 yards. I haven't weighed it yet to figure out how much I have remaining. I did use some on the sleeves, obviously enough. But it just looks so much nicer now that I've properly done it. So you can see how the plies are actually fairly tonal. So there's lightness and darkness in each of the plies, which I find to be really cool. And this is something that you really can only get with spinning a tonal solid and then plying it all together. So really gorgeous effect here. Nice and soft, so I'm going to be winding this and resuming the sweater, as one does. Excuse me. So that's the story there. I just have to figure out how much of that body I want to knit, figure out whether or not I do want to knit with most of the remaining yarn, which probably means I need to weigh it. So if I decide to make a color block that uses, I don't even know, if I decide to make a larger color block, I'm past the point of increases and decreases, so it's just straight up knitting until it's over. But, so this is, I didn't specify, this is Breathing Space by Vera Valimaki. It is knit out of Nest Superwash Merino Silk, and the Mistletoe, and then the combo spin of Noel and Yuletide. So, not too crazy. So I am much, much closer to victory on this sweater, which is good. So even though I was like complaining a little bit last week about it, it's gonna be fine. It's gonna be good. So that is the story there. And so that was like a pretty quick little spinning project, letting the twist out. I just had to basically unravel the yarn I had knit and then just run it through really fast through the wheel. So I had it on, I still had it in my regular flyer, but the biggest ratio in order to take that out. And it doesn't take much to really shift it. So that was good. Not too crazy. So the other thing that got most of my love this week was my Luna Moth shawl. So this is in the middle of the row. As one does. It's in, I don't know what it'd be. We're not even in the middle of a row right now. So I ended up weighing this bad boy, and then I knit back and forth, and then I weighed it again. Well, actually, is my math flawed? Yeah, no, my math was flawed. So I was trying to figure out about how much I needed in order to finish off the thing. So I used about 0.4 grams in a pair of rows. There are, based on that, I have 41 pairs of rows of yarn left. Let's reserve 4 of those let's reserve 4 of those pairs for the bind off. I'm not quite sure the nature of the bind off at this point. It would make sense, based on sort of its Estonian-ish laciness, that I would probably want to actually do a doubled yarn bind off. So just give it just a little bit more heft. So, we'll reserve 5 of those pairs and be pretty conservative. Well, 3 pairs is probably plenty conservative, so that would leave me 38. And then if I divide 38 by 17 pairs, I have 2 and some left to go. Repeats. But I do need to finish the half repeat I'm on right now, so I'm actually pretty close to being done with this shawl. Unless I needed to do like a half repeat, in which case then I could easily fit in like whatever 2 complete ones and then call it good. So, but it does sound like I'm actually getting pretty close to completion on this project, which is nice. So I'm knitting this out of Elan Silken Kid, which is a 70% mohair, 30% silk blend, and the Lion brand wool stainless steel. So this is 75% wool and 25% stainless steel. Neither of these are have stretch, but the knitting garment or whatever, this shawl is turning out nice and stretchy because it's knitting by magic. So I'll probably have to check in on my math again to make sure that I do have enough blue to get to the end of this guy, but I'm feeling pretty hopeful at this point. I'm thinking, or what would it be? I'm thinking that I would want it to end on one of the more clustery rows, because that would look nice. Because then everything would be those are the rows that end up having everything point out. I think that would look right. So right now I'm doing the less intuitive part of the chart, but it's not terrible because my markers were easy to move and it was easy to tell where they were going. So I got a system and it's working. So not too much more that's going to need to be done. This is sort of the halfway point in the 10-row chart. Or it's not a 10-row chart, it's whatever. Stuff and things. So this is the point at which I will be decreasing again, which is fine. So, or that the count between my increases and decreases will be decreasing. Whatever. So it's coming along. It isn't always the best project for all circumstances, but it is what I've got going on right now. And it is pretty scrunched up on the needles right now. I could move it to a different circular, like my red lace circulars or something like that. I don't know. We'll figure something out. What else would I want to say about this project? I'm not really coming up with anything right now. So I am in the second cone of this, but I am certainly fairly far along in my second ball of the mohair silk, and that's going to be the limiting yarn for this shawl. So I will have extra wool silk at the end of this one. So anything else? No. I'm just knitting the row. Alright. I'll just get this to a place where I can stop. Which is not in between markers. Okay. So coming along, I what is it? This sort of mid repeat is the one where I get to add more markers. The other one, you don't have enough stitches increased. And then what I ended up doing was folding the chart so I could see everything I wanted to see, which is inconvenient when you need to consult a different part of the pattern. And most of this pattern is like the written out instructions, so this looks to be I'm just trying to figure out if they had some more specific instructions on how to finish. Okay, so apparently all right. So they do want you to work end a half on it until victory. So actually, where I was measuring from was correct, so I have 2 more repeats to go on that shawl. And then just be like, whatever. It's a little bit full of silliness. Okay. Anything else in this bag that I needed to show you guys? No. There's probably just stuff in that bag that I need to put where it belongs in this room. So I do have enough yarn for a 2 more repeats on that, which is good. Roughly speaking, because my rate of increases isn't totally crazy pants. So, the other thing that I have going on right now, and I actually just put back on the wheel, is my Corriedale spin. So, this is the fiber that I received it at Rhinebeck, dyed at yarn school, turned into bats at yarn school, pulled into roving at home, and now I am spinning up 4 bobbins of this stuff. I have 2 of my balls complete, and I have 2 more to go, and they are the bigger ones. But it shouldn't really matter all that much what way it ends up going, because I'm just filling up bobbins. And then I'll have to figure out how I want to handle the plying of this bad boy. So, undecided at this point. And it still smells like machine oil, but I haven't properly washed it with soap yet, so I really hope I get that smell out. So I'm doing this sort of semi-woolen, like short backward draw sort of spin, aiming to keep the yarn pretty lofty, and it's turning out like really nice so far. You can sort of see from here how the fiber itself definitely has a very matte look to it. So it's like a little bit it's like, it's definitely a blurbly sort of color. For sure. So, the other thing that I ended up finishing this week was I was freeing up bobbins so I could resume. So I could resume my spin the bin project. This is a part of my bin this year. Was that I ended up taking 2 of my class samples off the bobbin. So what I ended up doing was, so last week I showed you this yellow and orange BFL, and also my bobbin of yak and how much I had spun of that. So what I ended up doing was I applied together my BFL with my yak. So the yak was more wooleny spun. The BFL was worsted spun. And I pretty much had even amounts. I had a little bit extra BFL at the end, but it's mostly yak and BFL. What I was doing here was sort of combining different parts of the class. So I have my down. My down was brown, so what I ended up doing was added tone to my skein itself. So the light parts of this guy are adding the light parts of this are adding the tint. The dark parts are adding shade, and then the tone is sort of all that middle stuff. So it's making for a much more complicated color than what applying it, both of these back, or applying one on itself and the other on itself would have created. So it's maybe like a little bit twisty, but it's not crazy. I don't believe I weighed how much I had, but I believe I have 300 yards of this. Now that I say that, I'm filled with that. I did count it and put it on Instagram, so I'll just look. Some things are easier to look up than otherwise. So, alright. Whoops. So, this is 151 yards. So, not too crazy. It's possible that I might be able to combine it with something else in order to actually make a project with it. What would it be? The light that I got the photo in on Instagram, I think, just really captures like that perfect sort of mix of light and dark. So this one, for some reason, is looking a little bit darker now. So it has been washed and bathed, and now it can be put with my other samples. So not too crazy. And honestly, actually, I'm going to take this and split it in half in order to make a proper mini skein, because a 2-yard skein with like this little weight in it, so much easier to you just need a 1-yard thing, not a 2-yard thing. So I'm pretty happy with how this guy ended up turning out. Obviously not my normal jam of colors with all of these sort of earthy and foresty, but I didn't get my pick of fiber color. It was all reds and oranges and yellows by the time I came around to my part of the classroom during the class. So I have 2 more samples I need to spin up, and I probably will end up trying to make more progress on. So I have my de-haired llama, I have my merino yak silk left to spin, and then I have some fiber samples, which are probably more along the lines of or will be more useful for changing colors of fibers. Then they will, being just spun as samples. The point of my white and black silk is to morph it. So maybe I will end up combining those with different ones in order to morph things. I'm not sure. Shouldn't be too crazy. And then the other spinning related thing I did was I made rologs. So it turned out I was being a little risky. So I ended up splitting. So I had camel silk, camel, and kiviot. And what I ended up doing was I took out my cards and made rologs by mixing them all together. I tried 3 different ways before I sort of just settled on having it be a little bit better blended. So these are now sort of a light pink with a little bit sort of the sandiness of the kiviot and the pure camel in it. I don't know whether or not you'll be able to see, but anything that looks sort of like a nap is actually the kiviot. It is super duper short. But hopefully by combining it in this way it's a little bit easier to work with. And what I have here is my Jenkins Finch, so I'm planning on spinning these rologs on the Finch. But I wanted to show you guys the rologs before I got started. So I ended up splitting the fiber into 8s and trying to get a pretty decent mix of all 3 fibers into each rolog. And then I just rolled them up and pulled them off my cards and called it good. So it should make for, I don't think it's going to be too two-tonal, but it might be. Who knows? But I figured that I wanted the fastest, lightest spindle I own, and I believe it's that one. So that's going to be a fun little project. I might actually end up sticking it in a spinning bag and carrying it with me, because, what would it be? What would it be? Because travel spinning is wonderful. So, I'm having a little bit of a whirlwind thing, but hopefully that'll be fine. So, it shouldn't be too crazy, but it's So, it means that I need to work tomorrow, which is lame, but that's what I get for blowing all of my vacation and being sick. And I will have new vacation in 2 weeks, so we'll just go with that. So, trying to think if there is anything else I wanted to talk with you guys about. But I think that is everything. Looks pretty decent at this point, so I should be able to record next week. I bet it'll be on Sunday, but who knows? I might still feel like doing it on Saturday as well. Whatever. It shouldn't be too crazy. What it be? It turns out that I'm gonna basically get a full day of knitting I don't normally get next week, so I'm excited about that. And then I will need to finish, I will need to upload all of my fiber and stuff like that. So that shouldn't be too crazy, but it is, I realized at some point as I was going through my fiber stash that I had a lot of missing entries. And I had even taken photos of everything, but then hadn't immediately added it. So I feel a little bit silly about that. So that's something that I would like to get cleaned up today as well. So do just a whole lot of little finishing things. So, it shouldn't be too crazy. So, with that, I hope you guys have a lovely week, and I look forward to talking to you guys next week. So, take care, guys. Bye bye.